All right. 5 seconds. Taking the Time with Brad McAllister of Mitchell Timepieces and Brian Coach. Hey guys, how we doing?
Hey, good afternoon.
All right. So today we posted up our topic, and I looked in the comments, and there was already quite a few comments. That was pretty exciting. So it looks like we're doing some right things. First things first. I think we should do a wrist check.
Well, I'm going to take it off because today. Oh, you didn't.
Yeah.
You didn't.
Did you? That's hilarious. That's hilarious.
This is not. This is not.
4. I think there's 4 people in the world that have this watch right now, and 2 of them are wearing it on the show. It's the Mitchell Timepieces Raider. I will be updating everybody shortly. There was a slight delay in production, but I expect to have watches by the end of August, and I cannot wait to get these watches to all the fine people that backed this project outside of Kickstarter. Everybody knows the Kickstarter launched in April, and that was a rough go because of timing. But I had enough supporters to get together the funds to go ahead and make the run, so that's super exciting. That being said, our wrist check was brought to you by Wrist Check Monthly. I want you to check out the banner below and check out their website. They have some awesome subscriptions, and I believe they have 5 different levels. So anything to fit your budget from high to low. So check out Wrist Check Monthly and get on with the subscription. They have slots of watches too. So it's kind of like you're gambling for a watch basically. And then they do lotteries too. So check those guys out. Really cool option. I had entered the lottery for the Dan Henry. Did you see that, Brian? That Dan Henry lotto?
I did. And I was traveling, and I was I didn't realize how off the grid I was going to be. And I wasn't able to get it because my cell phone signal would go from 0 to just a little bit and then back to 0. And I was like, I might as well just turn the phone off because it's not doing anything. So,
yeah, I mean, you know what's cool about those lotteries though? It's like you pay $3 or $10 or whatever. I mean, you buy a lottery ticket, you're basically just pissing your money away. But like, at least with this, you actually have some pretty decent odds to win a cool watch. So, I mean, hey, why not?
And especially with Wrist Check Monthly, they do a lot of charity work, and they really right now they're doing.
I think they have this. It's a massive lottery for a veterans charity over in the UK going on. Still right now. And man, like you guys got to check that out because there are so many great pieces that you could win. So get on over there, check those guys out, and show them some love too. Yeah. All right. So today, what topic we're going to get to is eventually is the NH35 versus the Miyota 9015. And guys, I saw those messages. I'm like, man, this is not going to be what they think it's going to be. At least I don't think so. And we're going to get to that in a minute. But I wanted to talk a few minutes about the lack of new stuff out there, especially in the Microbrand. I follow Yema too. So, and they're not, but in a lot of means considered a microbrand, but I feel like they're like pumping out new watches like every few weeks. And I'm like, what are these guys doing? Or maybe I'm just seeing the ads for everything, but they're like exploding. But micros, I mean, what's coming out that's new? Like,
am I correct with Yema? They also have a contract with the French military though.
Yeah.
So they have a pretty solid revenue stream. And I think that may be part of it right now. We are still in an evolving world. This was the, like I said, I was traveling. It was the first time I've had to wear a face mask on a plane the entire ride. You got to rent a car or a face mask. It's the world we're living in. We're starting to get back to semi-normal, but I will tell you those flights were not even close to full, which was nice. Because Delta nicely upgraded us to at least Comfort Plus, which for me at 6'2", 300 pounds, that's a huge thing.
So what's new though? Like, what new watches are you aware of? The one that sticks out of my mind is Andy Seeley and Malls has a really cool power reserve on Kickstarter, and I think it's around 50% funded right now. I can't for the life of me think of what else is coming out soon or coming out now. It's just, and I think that's pretty. I feel like I'm fairly aware of what's coming out and what's going on, but I feel like we're kind of in what I would call a little bit of a dead spot.
Just going to the comments, I see the Prometheus Gauge Master is coming out soon, but also that's just a thank you, Abe. In the comments there, I know also Valhalla of Norway has a new model coming out. The last Kickstarter was in the middle of COVID. It did not do well. This is a completely different design coming from them. I have seen pictures of it. We're hoping to get a prototype for the show here. It looks fantastic. It's got a carbon fiber dial, which doesn't look like carbon fiber. It looks more like red and black Damascus. They have a blue one. They have it's pretty cool, and I really hope it does well because over there they're out of Norway, and they're really you could see that
Roy's a great guy.
He is, yeah. Roy is a fantastic guy, fantastic designer. That is his job. He is one of the very few full-time Microbrand owners, and that I know. And he's pulling out all the stops on this one. It looks great. I hope when it comes to our side of the pond and we get to play with it, it feels as great as it looks. I think everybody's really going to dig it. So
yeah. So but that's coming soon. It's not live on Kickstarter or anything like that. And that's the one I'm really paying attention to is the Malls Power Reserve. I'm not going to pretend to try to pronounce the Italian words, but it's 24 rotations in English. It's a really nice, I call it a dress watch, but I call a lot of watches that aren't necessarily dress watches. So
it's a multifunctional. It's one of those watches. It depends. I think it depends on the strap. If you put it on a nice leather strap, you could wear it out and it's going to look fine at a nice dinner or a wedding. If you put it on a bracelet, it's going to look a little bit more sporty. If you throw it on a nylon or something, it could be, you could go mow the lawn with it. I think it's a good looker all around. It's a little bit different. The design, I noticed kind of some automotive cues to it, which I am a car geek, and also along with watches and motorcycles and everything else, but and helicopters. I noticed some automotive themes from that. What did you notice any of that, Brad?
Oh yeah. Well, if I remember correctly, Andy is a big Alfa Romeo fan.
Alfa Romeo, yes.
So I think that's where some of those flavors are coming from.
Yeah.
But again, guys, go check out Malls Watches, mallswatches.com on Kickstarter. Even if you can't back the watch, throw a few dollars at them. There's some digital love or whatever. So let's support our watch community one way or another, whether it's backing a watch or just doing like a small contribution to the campaign. I think what I notice is a lot of brand owners do that to each other, and I think that's super cool. To have other brands say, hey, I can't buy the watch. I'm not going to buy the watch, but I'm going to do like a $10 or a $15 whatever contribution to your campaign is a very respectable gesture. That happened to me on my campaign, and I've done that on a few others. So it's just a cool thing to do. I think we're burning time, so I think we need to get right on to the topic at hand.
Dun, dun,
dun. Are you ready? Are you ready to rumble? All right, guys. So even when we were talking to Ivan about our show topic, because we kind of bounce ideas off each other and stuff, Ivan's like, man, why are you comparing the 9 series to the NH35? And I'm like, that's a great question, because they aren't in the same ballpark by any stretch of the imagination. The Miyota is a lot more expensive. It's a higher beat movement, excuse me. It's a thinner movement, so it gives you a lot more freedom to do thinner cases and to do different things in that aspect. It's actually a smaller movement all around, because it's an 11.6 size movement, whereas the Seiko is a 12 or 12 and a half. It's right in front of me here on the screen. The diameter, I'm using the old French measurement, so the case diameter is 29.
27.
27 for, yeah, but that's like, it's either 12 or 12 and a half Ligny in the French measurement. So yeah, but for the sake of covering the specs, they're both automatic wind movements. They both hack. They both have 24 joules accuracy. This is the Seiko spec, so it's -20 +40, which is a pretty hefty variance, but we're going to speak to that shortly. All right, let's move over to the Miyota specs. 11.5 size, as I mentioned before. The height is 3.9 instead of a little over 5. Accuracy is -10 to +30. The power reserve is 42 versus the 41 on the Seiko. 24 joules, as we mentioned. They both have dates. They both have hacks. So that's the specs. So we all know the specs, right? But what is this really about?
On paper, you're going to say I think everybody that has a brain is going to say that the 9 series Miyota is a better movement than a Seiko NH35. But then it comes to why. Is it the beat? Is it, everybody, it seems like a lot of people really like the sweeping hand, and that goes back to, I think, when we were all kids, and we, you see this big expensive watch advertisements with a beautiful sweeping second hand. It almost never stops, and it's just fluid, fantastic. And you associate that with
hesitation in the Seiko, a little bit more jerky,
little more, a bit of a stutter between it. You can notice it with the human eye. You don't need magnification or any of that stuff. You could definitely see the difference. The Miyota runs, it's a higher beat movement. A lot of people also think that higher beat means higher accuracy. It can, but not always either.
But so here's my question. If we're saying it's for accuracy, that's fine, but who's buying an automatic watch so that it's an accurate, by the definition of accurate, we'll say within COSC standards, or there's several other rating scales that are for spec. I'm not buying an automatic watch so that it's plus or minus 1 second or less per day. I could care less as long as it's telling time within the minute. That's me.
Yeah. So. I mean, and if you are like Brad and I are, where you have multiple watches in your rotation, you hit 10 to some, they're going to wind down. Some people want to use watch winders. That's going to be a completely different episode, because that back and forth could go for another 3 days. But, watch winders, between winding them down, I let mine wind down. So why beat on them if you're not wearing it? In my opinion, people can go on about oils, forget it. Not going there with the winding thing. But when you think about accuracy, I mean, if you want the most accurate thing on your wrist, I'm going to say a very bad word, and it starts with a Q.
You're going to make me cringe. Oh.
I know I'm guilty of it. I have 99.9% of my watches are automatics. I love them, but if you want that ultimate accuracy, Quartz gets it. It does, and it's totally against everything we all want. We want that beautiful sweep. Quartz is jerky. I mean, tap, 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 tap.
So it's not accuracy. So we can agree to say that, at least for us, the choice isn't based on accuracy.
I think it's more aesthetic. Honestly, in my opinion, aesthetics, that pretty secondhand sweeping along smoothly, and that gives you that feeling of real quality. And
so it's the sweep. Okay, so you got me stumped there a little bit. Did you notice that? I'm like, So I mean, okay, so we want that nice smooth sweep. Have you ever said, I'm not going to buy that watch because it has an NH35 movement in it?
No.
Nope. Me either.
No, it's
actually, I probably have at some point. And what I ended up learning was my lesson. I see it all the time, and some of the comments before the show even started. Steven said, "You're focusing too much on movements, or just like case size, guys are too hung up on watch movements." And you have a valid point there, because when I look at an exceptional design with a Miyota movement or an NH35 movement, it's like the one that came to mind was the Visitor, the Dunshore. And it's like, I see this design and I'm like, when that was one of the first few micros that I saw that, I was one of those Swiss people, Swiss, blah, 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 blah. And so I saw this watch and then I was looking at the specs. I'm like, oh, it's a Miyota. And then I was like, but I love this design. So I had to have it. So I got on the list, waited, and ended up getting it. But it's like, when are people going to start realizing that it's the design of the watch that you're buying into? That's what a brand is, because Seiko makes the movement, Miyota makes the movement, which is it's a Citizen, owned company or whatever. So, but nobody says, well, that's a Citizen, I'm not going to buy that, or that's a Seiko. I mean, if you compare those two, if what we're doing is comparing movements, then Seiko's way more popular, so Seiko should win every time, right?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like, even Brian Sagamon is in the comments here made a really great point. Said most of our clients are not watch collectors. As long as they're good Japanese movements, they're fine with it. And that's the truth, is that, does it have to be Swiss? No. And so we're not only saying, obviously, going between the NH35 and the 9015, but we're also going, does it have to be Swiss? Because we're talking, then you move over to Swiss movements that are comparable, maybe a little bit more accurate than the Japanese movements, but you're talking about what, 10 times the price for the European equivalent.
It's so
I can't.
It's frustrating.
And I'm not anti-Swiss. I love Swiss movements. You guys catch me almost every week where I forgot to change my watch before, or I'm just wearing the same one and I wear a Tissot. That's my daily beater, and it's not because I have a lot of money. It's because I got a screaming deal on it. And I actually got that to sub in for my Seiko when I started having problems with it, and I couldn't get it fixed because of COVID. So, it's like.
But I mean, you just bought a Seiko. Did you get a Seiko? Was it a 5? Is that right? Or a Turtle? Or
did you just Samurai? Yeah, the
Samurai. Okay. See, they're all the same. I don't collect Seikos. I don't know. It's an enormous everything. Yeah. But I mean, what attracted you to the Seiko?
I have a couple of them, and I really like them. The movements, honestly, the movements, the NH35s, the NH36s, or the 4R36s and things, and it's actually in a Seiko. They're great watch movements. They're rugged.
But is that but wait, is that why you bought the watch? Because of the NH35 movement?
It has that one has a 4R36 or NH36 movement in it, which is a date movement, versus the 35, which is a date movement only.
Man, I feel like I'm talking to a politician. My question, sir, do I need to get the light? The question is did you buy the watch for the movement, or did you buy it for some other reason?
I bought it because I liked it, because I wanted more of a dedicated dive watch for when I go diving. I'm really interested in trying that one. I had been using my Regia diver when I was going diving, which that's the one I modded with the little scuba helmet on it, and people have probably seen it. And I did some wacky stuff, and it worked great. Big bubble sapphire crystal. Guess what's inside? NH35.
Yeah, but that's not why you bought the watch. That's my whole point.
No. I bought it because it's a good watch and it was a really great price. And so I was like, well, I have a little bit of money right now. Okay, I'll get that. I bought it secondhand off a guy down the road here.
Because you wanted to buy a watch.
It was totally random. I was just like, oh, hey, how about this? And it showed up on for sale. That was it. I was like, I like that. I'll try one.
And I think a perfect example of this concept of design versus movement is in the Zelos market. So the last, not the last model, but so before the Makos, like the reissue of the Hammerhead, the new Hammerhead that came out like around December, I think, they had ETA movements and they had NH35 movements. And they're this exact same watch with I think maybe like a $200 price difference or something like that. It's just if you're looking at the same dial, it was like around $150 to $200 difference for the price of the watch. So I guess that's a good way to look at the science experiment. But what I found out is a lot of people know I was selling off a lot of my Zelos. I had a fairly decent collection of Zelos that I sold off. I was struggling to get a good value out of the ETA movements because people are like, I'll just get the NH35 movement. So it's like, well, yeah. Because they want the design. That's the point. They want the design, the styling. They don't care as much about the movement. I heard that over and over. Well, if I can find an NH35, I'll just buy that. I'm like, yeah, that's cool. And there's still movement snobs out there. I'm kind of one of them, but I'm kind of not.
You save a lot of money if you go with the NH35 over a Swiss movement or something. I mean, I'm talking hundreds of dollars you could save just on the movement itself and have the same watch. It just has a different heart in it. And this is big when you get into micros, because these are small 1 or 2 person companies, or, maybe 3 people. And they just devote their any and all free time to designing and building watches. And then it comes out great. And then you look at the price list when you have, I want a Swiss movement and everything else is perfect. And it comes out and you're like, nobody's going to buy this for $1,000. Okay, let's swap in one of the Japanese movements, and all of a sudden it brings the price down to something. And that in the micro world, it can make or break your Kickstarter campaign. It can make or break anything, because in micros, so much comes down to price point, value for, and if you can get a good movement, Japanese movement or Swiss movement, whatever, and it's that. If more of your dollars can go into design and, material, as far as, a sapphire crystal versus, other, glass and things like that, Hardex and the other things they use, or plastic even, you're going to end up feeling like you have a much higher quality watch on your wrist at the end of the day, in my opinion. with
the movement's not going to change the feel of a watch.
No,
unless it's a Valjo, which is so thick that it has to make the watch so much thicker. So, and that's not what we're talking about today, anyway. Truly, somebody had I know. Traditionally, we stay out of the comments for the most part during the show because we don't want it to be choppy. But today, it kind of fits the bill. Somebody had mentioned the STP movements, and I think a lot of brands are staying away from those because of reliability issues, consistency, and regulation issues. The reason why we didn't compare, I kind of alluded to this earlier, but the 8215, the Miyota movement, which is really more comparable to an H35, is everybody hates it because it doesn't hack. I actually use the 8215, or not the 8215, but the 8N, 40, and 24, and variants of the Hercules watch. I only made 10 of those. And people didn't want them because of the movement in a lot of ways. So it was a little tricky, but that was the only skeleton sub-seconds hand that Miyota made. And that's kind of, the case was designed for Miyota movement. So that's what we did.
Well, and that's another thing, is that you're talking about watch design. When you look at, have a skeleton movement in the front of it, you want it to look cool and see the pieces going around and everything. If it looks plain, it's going to take away from it. So that's one of those things.
That 8 series, it isn't very polished. It has a rough look, and that fit into, if you look at the Hercules, if you guys aren't sure what we're talking about, mitchelltimepiece.com, there should be some pictures of the original Hercules. If not, definitely on the Instagram, Mitchell Timepieces 45 on Instagram. You can find some of the old Hercules. It's the skeleton. It's the stainless steel skeleton watch with the disc as the dial. It's actually cut out of C130 metal, so it kind of matches the flow. That brushed finish matches the original paint from the C130 on that disc. So it worked. Like that's what I wanted. That's what I had envisioned. So, but that's not going to work on some of the others. And so, but it's all about the design. That's the whole thing we're talking about right now, is the design of the watch.
I think that's a big thing. And then, to push the value, maximize what the customer is going to get for the money, and still be able to, have a little bit of something to eat for dinner on the manufacturing end. And what I think kind of sums it up is really what we're saying is, there's great Japanese movements, there's great Swiss movements, and they pretty much, the differences on the surface of a standard watch is going to be pretty much how jerky the second hand is. Other than that, there's a huge price difference that could have gone into really neat case design. And I'm loving the fact I'm seeing lots of brand owners in the comments here, and collectors. This is fantastic. I know we try to stay away from the comments because it does especially get me sidetracked, but I don't want to go down that road. But
we absolutely appreciate the
to have everybody together, and I'm really reading them, and it's like I said, that Abe said they did the same thing on the Berlin Wall watch with the NH35, right, and it was far more reliable than the ETA movement or the ETA. And I like that watch. Abe, thank you for doing that one. That was awesome. I like the colored one with the 89. And
I haven't seen it. That's going to be one I'm going to have to look up.
It's like spray paint on. It's really cool. It actually has little pieces of the Berlin Wall in the crown.
Oh yeah, that is cool.
I actually almost randomly, kind of like that Seiko, I almost randomly bought one. It came on the market, and then it was in the smaller size, but I am of a larger size, and I like the larger one. So yeah. So hey, Abe, you're welcome. You guys are doing awesome stuff. Looking forward to that new one you have coming out, and do love the Berlin Wall. So
I got something to Google now.
For the Berlin Wall. Let me. Yeah.
What's that?
I said I love the Berlin Wall. So let me clarify. I love the Berlin Wall watch that you guys made. It's not. Yeah, no, I'm not. That's enough.
So, I mean, I think what we've concluded is there's really no quality difference. At the end of the day, we need to take into account, they're both going to tell time. They can be regulated very accurately, just as any watch. I mean, you can have an edge of movement that's out of standard. Anybody can regulate a watch to a watchmaker can regulate any movement to be more accurate. So at the end of the day, find what you like, buy what you like, buy the reputation of the brand, buy the design of the brand. Let's put some faith in brands. Micro brand buyers are some of the most picky. I'm including myself in this, guys, not as a brand owner. I'm saying this as a consumer as well. We're spec people, and that's because we're so used to getting all these specs for a ridiculously affordable price. And at some point, I have a feeling that'll change. Maybe not, but at some point, we're going to be paying more for what we're getting now for less.
Yeah, definitely. Some geopolitical issues that are going to cause that.
To wrap it up, Ivan said, give a big shout out to Corey Blake. I have no idea why I'm giving a big shout out to Corey Blake, but
Corey.
Sorry, bud. There's probably a reason for that, but I'm just doing what Ivan's telling me to do. He's going to laugh about that later, I think. Sean, I'm just kind of going through the comments. Sean says that's why he likes his night ops. It's definitely the design on that one. Yeah, man. It's an 8 series Miyota movement that tells time very well. It doesn't have a hack feature, but it's the design where we got to achieve something new with the C-130 gunship disc, and we created something special there. It's a very unique one-off piece. So,
and it looks really cool.
Yeah, the Delta Hydro is a beauty. Ivan said.
Yeah, multiple. I'm saying that.
I got some stuff to look up.
NH35. So I mean, actually, there are NH35 is actually pushing back a little bit. I'm surprised, and you know what? I love all of them. I can't say anything bad about the NH35 or the Miyota movements. Basically the Seiko movements and the Miyota movements are very good, and you can get a whole lot for your money before you go into a Swiss movement, and that allows brand owners and things like that to give you more of the rest of the watch for your money. So without putting the price point too high, because I see, like we said, some of those equivalent Swiss movements are almost, you take the movement price and multiply by 10. Yeah. Now you just made a really cool watch that's unaffordable for a lot of people. So,
all right, this is my final thought. I'll turn it over to you for your final thought, and then we're going to hit the end broadcast button. My final thought is, and Ivan kind of hit this too. The watch movement is one part of the design, and it's not the most expensive. Creating the case is the most expensive part. That's what takes my time. That's what takes the engineer's time to design that case so that everything works out. The movement, while it's some people say it's the most important part, but it's not the most expensive part. It's designing the case. What I'm creating, what's in here, I'm out of thin air. So that's my final thought. We're buying a case, we're buying a design, we're buying a brand. We're not buying a movement. You're up, my friend.
I can't argue with you there. And case design. I'm seeing some really wild stuff coming out now. It's really great to see people getting what's in here, getting it turned into steel, carbon fiber, bronze, whatever they want to do, and it's coming out, and they're coming out amazing.
Yeah,
and I think we're after this pandemic and all, once we get used to our new version of life all over the world, that we're really going to see a new output of quality design. And you're right. The big money is not in, you can order 100 of whatever watch movements and you'll get a little bit of a discount. To take what's in here and turn it into something physical costs a ton of money. And that's where what is probably 65 to 70% of the price is for micros, at least.
Well, I mean, you know, it takes several $1,000s just to get a prototype.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's the main thing there. You know, people don't realize what it takes to get that $500 watch on their wrist. They don't take into account what it takes to get it into my hands
Exactly.
before I can even offer it to them. So, all right, guys, that sums it up, man. We're buying a case, we're buying a brand, we're buying a design, we're buying into a brand and a person behind that brand. Again, I want you guys to go to malls.co.uk. Check out the Malls Power Reserve model. It's their first automatic movement watch. Speaking of design and buying into a brand and a great pair of brothers there. Andy and I can't remember his brother's name, but they're brothers that own Malls. So check them out. Check the design out. Interesting fact, you want to really pay attention to the rose version of that watch. There was some very special work that went into that coating for that watch. So go over, check out the Malls on Kickstarter, back it, even if you're not buying a watch, back the idea of the brand and two good guys there. Go over to Slots of Watches, check them out, and Wrist Check Monthly. And that's it for us, guys. Have a good one. We'll see you next week.
Until next time, keep it real and stay healthy, guys.